Hey everyone, this is Phil, and in this video, we're going to be talking about how to prepare for an airsoft MILSIM event as a beginner. If you're new to this channel, welcome. Our goal is to create educational airsoft content to help players of all levels get the most out of their airsoft experience. And although this video is primarily aimed at beginners, some more experienced airsofters could also benefit from this advice. Big airsoft events are a huge draw for players all around the world, and they come in many different shapes and sizes. From smaller objective-based games lasting a few hours, to larger multi-day operations such as MILSIM West and Border War. As a beginner, it can be daunting to know how to truly prepare for your first event, and indeed to know even if you're ready or experienced enough to attend one. So today, we're going to go over some of the best ways to help you prepare for your first event, and we'll highlight some key do's and don'ts that will help you get the most out of your experience. So let's get to it. Over the past few years, I've had the good fortune of speaking with many different airsofters from all around the world about their MILSIM experiences, and to find out what has and hasn't worked for them, which has been extremely enlightening. I've of course attended MILSIM events myself, and I've organized dozens of MILSIM-style, objective-based, multi-hour airsoft scenarios, and so I've witnessed firsthand how beginners have both struggled and succeeded at these events, which was actually the inspiration for this video. As I mentioned in the intro, not all MILSIM events are the same, and in fact, many of them are polar opposites, despite both calling themselves MILSIM. There isn't a clear definition or standard of what makes a quote-unquote real MILSIM. American MILSIM events like Iron Horse or Arsenal are very different from Border War in Europe, which is in turn very different from MILSIM West. Some have strict uniform and replica requirements, while others are a lot more relaxed. Some, like MILSIM West, issue ammunition to players and limit how much they can get, while events like AMS, for example, might give you a cap on how many magazines you can carry, but not actually care the capacity of each magazine. This means that there isn't one standard approach that will work at every event, and this brings us to our first point. You absolutely must read the event organizer's rule set, as well as any supplemental documentation that relates to the particular event you are attending. Some organizers will have a general rule set or TAC SOP or TAC SOP that applies to all of their events, which includes rules on how to play, camouflage requirements, that kind of stuff. Then issue operation orders or OP-ords, which highlight the strategic objectives for the specific team you're on, or perhaps more generally, what objectives or props might look like, how you'll be organized, etc. In other cases, organizers will have one big event rules document that includes all of that information in one place. Regardless, it is imperative that you be familiar with this information. At every single event that I've been involved with, both as a player and an organizer, I've seen players show up without a clue about how they're supposed to play this particular game. And not only is this a huge mistake, but it is 100% avoidable. Most game organizers make the rules available to players well ahead of time so that they can familiarize themselves and show up prepared on game day. MILSIM events will generally feature all kinds of special rules that affect every aspect of play, including how you call your hits, how medics work, how to interact with game items like locks or IEDs, how to destroy objectives or vehicles, and many, many more. Organizers typically put a lot of effort into creating a complex and dynamic event, and all the information you need to get the most out of the event will generally be contained in their documentation. At the very least, you should be super familiar of what's expected of you specifically as an individual player. In the past, I've seen players show up with an airsoft replica they wanted to run as a particular class, such as DMR, only to be told they couldn't do that because their replica didn't meet the event's definition for that class. I've seen players show up not knowing that they need a personal bandage or IFAK to be revived by a medic, and therefore they're not able to get healed until someone else on their team is able to sort them out. You can't just show up assuming all of your regular kit will be fine for use. You need to take the time to double check that everything you're planning to bring will be acceptable for use at the particular event that you've selected. This leads me to our second point. You need to tailor what you're bringing specifically to the particular event that you have selected. Again, MILSIM events vary greatly in what players might require for the event. At MILSIM West, for example, players are expected to bring resources to sustain them for 36 hours or more, including food, water, warmth layers, etc. While at American MILSIM, you generally will be returning to your fob to resupply every few hours, and you won't be on the field overnight. Many events also include a packing list in their documentation, so assuming you've actually done the previous piece of advice and read the documentation, you should know at a minimum what you should be bringing. For example, if you will need to carry your kit on the field, such as MILSIM West, then keeping your HPA tank and a rucksack you might need to ditch during an engagement is probably not a good idea. On the flip side, if you know you'll be heading back to FOB regularly through the event, then you shouldn't plan to carry any sustainment kit on your person and instead focus on preparing a solid FOB bag. You also need to think about how much kit to bring. One thing I have seen many players struggle with over the years is simply bringing too much stuff, or stuff that is just straight up useless for their event. Now, if you're doing an impression kit or something of that nature, then by all means fill your boots, but I've seen players show up to a 6-hour event with 4 different replicas, a hunting blind for camouflage, a camp stove, 2 full meals, etc. Absolutely overkill for the event in question. I myself was actually guilty of bringing too much food to AMS Iron Horse and left the field on the first day with almost half of my food still untouched. For food and water specifically, you want to try and end the event with next to no food and water left, which means that you carried exactly the right amount. Regardless of the event that you're attending, there are some obvious pieces of kit that will be essential, including your replica, your eye protection, your batteries, and so on. And for that kind of gear, there is a saying that 2 is 1 and 1 is none. If you only have one piece of essential kit, and for some reason that piece of kit becomes unusable, you will not be able to carry on playing until you secure a replacement. So it's worth considering having spares of essential gear, especially if the event you're attending does not have vendors on site where you can purchase replacement gear or get your equipment serviced. Personally, regardless of the event I'm attending, I always carry at least a spare pair of eye protection, easily accessible somewhere on my person, and when I run an AEG, I have a spare battery in a pouch on my chest rig. For HPA, I carry a spare remote line in my pack next to my tank, and I also pack a couple of spare parts as well as some simple tools, such as O-rings, silicone oil, and a multi-tool somewhere deeper in my pack or in my fob bag. As much as possible, though, I try not to carry that kind of stuff with me on the field, because the fact is that everything you take on the field with you adds weight to your kit, and all of that weight ends up costing you energy. At an event where you can rest at the fob whenever you want, that might not be as important, but at an event where you'll be going out on super long patrols and you need to carry all of your kit throughout the whole event, it might become a real issue. The saying ounces equals pounds and pounds equals pain absolutely applies here. Many experienced players at these types of events go through great lengths to trim down the weight of their kit. On the other hand, you don't want to undershoot it either. I've seen players show up with too little food or water, and those players quickly become a resource drain on their team or squad mates, who then have to supply them with food and water, or the players have to leave the field to get what they need, or in the absolute extreme cases, have to drop out of the event entirely. Don't be one of those people. As a beginner, though, it can be tough to know exactly what's necessary for a specific event, which leads me to our third point. Whenever possible, you should find players who have participated in this event in the past and ask for suggestions or feedback on how to prepare. This is where community groups such as our Storm Riders Discord can be super helpful. It's almost always possible for you to find someone who can help you think through your preparation so that you can show up for the event as squared away as possible. You can find out specifics about the field or area of operation, what to expect from the leadership structure, and even hear about what items those players found particularly useful or useless. Finally, you can get feedback from them about the things that you are considering bringing for the event. For example, when we were preparing for AMS Iron Horse in 2024, we spent a lot of time talking with players about how the game was run, what the AO was like, etc., to ensure we could take to the field as prepared and lightweight as possible. You might learn that the terrain at your chosen event is extremely rugged with a lot of hills, so you might use that knowledge to change how you prepare physically. No matter which MILSIM event you choose to attend, it's important to be realistic about your physical capabilities and your performance. How many times have you played airsoft for multiple hours in a row without a break? How many times have you gone on a multi-kilometer ruck march in your full fighting attire? How many times have you had to set up a watch rotation because the enemy might attack you in the dead of night? This isn't criticism. For many of us civilians, the first time we attend a full-blown MILSIM event like MILSIM West is the first time we will likely be putting our bodies through something like that. So you need to be realistic about pacing yourself, not going out too hot right out of the gate, and staying on top of your energy, your hydration, and your nutrition. At AMS Iron Horse, which was an extremely physically demanding event because of the heat, many players suffered from heat exhaustion and had to receive medical aid to recover. For others, it didn't get that far because they made sure to rest and hydrate regularly. Getting feedback from previous players at your chosen event can help you understand what you're in for physically and to best prepare for this experience. Remember, most of these events are marathons, not sprints, so it's important to treat them as such. The great thing is that most airsofters are perfectly happy to offer help to players looking to attend an event that's new to them. But the flip side of this is that you have to be open to getting feedback as well. Countless times I've seen people asking others for help and getting useful feedback from them, but then completely ignoring those people when what they are told wasn't what they wanted to hear and they just simply end up doing whatever they were going to do in the first place. This is not only extremely frustrating for the people who are giving you advice, but it's actually counterproductive to what you are trying to achieve. No, the way you move is not unlike other people, and yes, you are going to need a sling. Yes, you absolutely can survive a 12-hour day with 1 granola bar and 1 liter of water, but no, that is not a good idea. The reality is that many players have been here before you, and listening to their suggestions and applying them to your particular situation can only serve to help you. So seek out that knowledge as much as possible. Finally, no matter the MILSIM you're attending, our final piece of advice is to never try something new at an event. It doesn't matter if it's a new chest rig, a new helmet, different food, or whatever. If you're trying to get the most out of a new airsoft experience, the absolute last thing you want to be doing is discovering the limitations of a new piece of equipment. Maybe a new pack that you're trying causes chafing on your shoulders. Or maybe your new face protection that you're trying prevents you from getting a good sight picture. Or maybe that new MRE that you're trying gives you a bad stomach. As much as possible, you should be very familiar with all the kit you're taking to the event. Do a gear shakeout by wearing your MILSIM kit to a regular airsoft game if possible. See what works and what doesn't. At the very least, you should be putting on all your kit at home and going through some basic motions that you'll be doing on the field. Practice reloading your replica or dropping your pack, taking a knee, going prone, changing settings on your radio, that kind of stuff. Stuff that is likely to come up during your game. And if any of that feels difficult in the comfort of your home, realize that it is only going to get more difficult when you get to the event. While you're under pressure because you're tired, you've been on your feet for 6 hours, people are shooting BBs at you, all of these things will be more difficult. So it is critical for you to practice and understand whether or not your setup is actually setting you up for success. I did this myself while working on my MILSIM setup for an event later this year, and in doing that, I realized that some of my pouches were in the wrong place. The setup made sense on paper, but when I actually tried to use it in real life, I found my own limitations, and then I had to change my setup. I'm really glad that I figured this out at home rather than on game day. Again, the focus of attending a MILSIM like this for the first time should be on having the best experience possible, and struggling with otherwise controllable factors will really take away from your experience. So take the time to read the rules, get feedback on bringing the gear, and take only what you need, and make sure you know your gear like the back of your hand. So hopefully you found this video helpful. If you did, make sure to leave us a comment and share this video with other airsofters you know who might benefit from it. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.